Hello, hey, hi, how you doing? It's another episode of the Second Look Hockey Podcast. As always, I'm your host, David Leo. Join with me, co-host Cristian Chiniti, behind the camera right now. Maybe going to come in a little bit after. Producer Alex Mandarino. We are a couple days out now from I think it's 48 hours now out from the NHL trade deadline. Before we get into that, Christian, do you want to tell us about your week? Like I know we normally do that. I don't know if you want to just hop right into everything because we
All
do
I'll
have a lot to
say,
talk about.
we definitely, I'll say like absolute whirlwind of a week. Um, and then yeah, like it culminates on Friday. Did you like the NHL trade deadline landing on a Friday versus like I feel like in my mind when I picture the NHL trade deadline, it's like a Monday or a Wednesday or something. I don't know. Friday was a different
I,
feel. So I don't know if you had any specific connection there.
Okay, so I will tell you one thing. I had zero. I did not do any trade deadline thing. I don't know if I
Yeah.
mentioned this to you, but I was working that day,
Yeah.
like at
Yeah.
my
Okay.
part-time job,
Yeah.
and it was one of those like days where I try to like at least keep like in touch on my phone every so often while I'm there. From 7 to 4, I think I touched my phone once, and that was on my break, and that was at
Yeah.
like 2.
So you
So
kind of got to consume it all at once, which is a
yeah, I didn't
that's a
consume it. It slapped me all in the face,
yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But
interesting.
for you, I mean, this was your first trade deadline kind of being around the insider. Well, I don't know if it's the insiders, but you were in the inner circle, let's say, more than other
Sure,
people.
man.
How was that?
No,
How was that like for you?
oh dude, it was really fun. It was a long day. I was in the building from 8:30 a.m. till 10 p.m. Deadline stuff, some Raptors stuff after because they ended up playing and they got their third straight win. But no, the day flew by. Hectic, but lots of fun. And when we get to some of the stuff, some of the trades that happened, I can give you like some more insight in terms of like what the atmosphere was like in the building because there's definitely like one moment with one trade that'll stick with me for a while. But yeah, definitely really fun time, really fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll definitely get into that 100%. But maybe we start with instead of going into trades that did happen, why don't we start with trades that potentially happened and didn't happen?
Yeah, the
Uh,
freshest news, right?
yeah, that it is the freshest news 100%. So we found out yesterday, which would be Saturday, that um well, we found out on Friday that the Leafs were trying like after the deadline that the Leafs were trying very hard to acquire Mikko Rantanen.
Yeah.
They
Nick
had
Nick
offered.
Kiprios threw out, yeah, give him that
Yeah, so
offer.
they had offered I believe this would have been their final offer, or at least this is the offer that's known, the final offer that's been known of Easton Cowan, Fraser Minton, both uh two of the top three Leafs top tier prospects,
Yep.
right? Like
Yep.
between them, it's
Definitely.
like them two and Ben
Yep.
Danford, and
Yep.
also two first round picks as well. Um, but it kind of seems like that, or it doesn't seem it does seem like that Carolina, their big fish, their big trade target would have been Mitch Marner in a deal like that. Um, so the Leafs approach Mitch Marner, asking him to waive his no movement clause, which he then declines. He made it clear that he wanted to stay and sign a long-term contract with the Leafs. So that information kind of came out. Frege on Sportsnet. He wrote an article first,
Yeah.
um,
Pregame. Yeah.
outlining that stuff. Yeah, it must have been like an hour to pregame too, because it had Twitter in a frenzy for at least like, well, for most of the night. Like even during the game, I saw a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
more people just,
Yeah. And then
yeah.
like I watched him deliver the news on headlines and I
Hmm.
maybe just an extra piece of context there. When the Leafs approached Mitch Marner about waiving his no move clause, they couched it saying we want to sign you, but we're talking about Mikko Rantanen. So that's they did preface it by saying, listen, we want to sign you still, but this is too big of a deal to like not come and just ask if you waive your no move clause. Yeah, and then yeah, Elliot delivers the news again on headlines, which is just a little bit better to digest when you hear the guy speaking it versus just written in an article.
Mhm.
And my first reaction to that was I've never seen like Elliot deliver a like a Saturday headline note just so stone faced and serious. Like it was just there was a different vibe to it. Maybe Buddy's just tired out of his mind after deadline day, and I wouldn't blame him a
I
single
don't
bit.
blame
I
him.
had sent you guys out. I should have seen like where the source of that image was, but it was a post
It
basically.
looks like the source was inside the Sportsnet studio
Yeah,
because
so but it basically outlined Elliot's phone consumption time at like 19 hours on average this week. That is insane. I'm sure a lot of that is maybe him just leaving his phone on because Buddy definitely doesn't have it to auto turn off after 30 seconds, right? That's not
no,
happening.
probably not.
So yeah,
But
it's
even
probably
still,
he goes to
like,
sleep and that thing's on. Like it's crazy what he does, and my God, he does it well. But yeah, so he delivered that really somberly. And when the news broke originally in that article, I came to you guys pretty quickly with my gut reaction. Um, and
producer Mando, quick fact there. Apparently, he only had 3 hours of sleep before
yeah,
deadline, which does not
yeah.
surprise me.
And that information comes from the pod that he did on 32 Thoughts
Yeah,
after the deadline happened on Friday. Like you would have thought this guy went to sleep as soon as it hit, not 3 p.m., but my God, by 7 p.m. maybe he's in bed. No, Buddy went to go
no.
record yet another pod. So I mean, yeah, all the shout outs to Frege in the world, all the shout outs. But yeah, I came to you guys with my gut reaction about Mitch, feeling very concerned that this could be quote unquote the beginning of the end of his time in Toronto, with the caveat of things would have to go bad in the playoffs. Winning fixes everything. Maybe there's nothing to worry about if the Leafs are hoisting the 30-pound shiny thing at the end of it. But we can't assume that yet. So with the information we have, yeah, I I originally said I don't know why if you're Brad Treliving and you said this to Mitch, your priority is to sign him. Why are you even approaching him to waive his no move clause in what's been probably his best season as a Leaf since the first year that Tavares came over, where Mitch had a 90+ point season. I'd say that
Mhm.
was the second most or the most positive season he had just in terms of fan perception, his own confidence. And this one's right behind it, right? Like everything that Mitch has touched this year has turned to gold. Maybe except remember those comments he had where we went on a 3 game losing streak and
Yeah. Yeah. I
right?
mean,
That's
listen,
the
I didn't
only
like
blip on
any
the
of,
radar.
I'll be honest, I didn't like any of the quotes from anybody. Like everybody was saying the same thing, and it was like such just
Yeah.
generic.
So
I hated
tiny,
all of that, so I
tiny,
can't
tiny,
fault him
tiny
for
blip
it.
on the radar. Tiny, tiny
Sure.
blip on the radar. He goes to Four Nations. He's fantastic. 10 out of 10, and maybe not 10 out of 10, but he starts the tournament with an overtime winner, ends the tournament with an overtime assist to win the
Assist.
tournament
Yep.
for Canada. Like you can't complain about that.
The golden apple, some call it.
Yeah, he comes on to Hockey Night in Canada the Saturday after, has this awesome pregame availability with Ron McLean. Everybody's loving it, and it's insane how quickly things can crumble. I think we're kind of back to square one with the fan perception and just the overall feeling I have about our confidence to sign Mitch Marner. And my original concern was with Mitch Marner's confidence. It's like I said, I'm like, if you're Brad, why kind of, as Mitch once put shambles in Mitch's brain
Yeah.
with that type of talk. Based on yesterday, where he comes on and has a 2 goal game, I don't think he's taken that part of it too hard. But maybe
Maybe it's
the way
motivation. Maybe it's just it.
motivation to do what though? To prove the Leafs wrong, or motivation to
I would love it if that's the case because at what point in Mitch Marner's career has he proved the Leafs, like the organization or the fan base wrong? When has he proved anybody wrong?
this
He's
is
magical. Like let's
this
get it all
season.
out in the open.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this season he's on he's on pace to prove us wrong, just in terms of how good he's been.
Sure, regular season he can prove
Yeah.
us wrong for
And
sure,
you're
a
right that
hundred
that's happened
percent.
before. This isn't the first time he's been on pace to prove us wrong, but
Mhm.
I just think everything's kind of lining up for it. Like with Matthews being in the season that he's having, with Nylander, the goal scoring's been there with
He's
Willie,
tailed
but
off a little
the
bit though.
point production compared to last year isn't as great. So at the end of the day, the MVP of this team has been Mitch Marner this year.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, I'll let's caveat that with let's also give a big shout out to the
yeah, yeah.
goaltending play,
Even if we just
but
say skaters, that's right.
that's fine. Yeah, a
He's
hundred
he's
percent.
far he's far and away the number one.
But besides maybe last season where Austin Matthews scores 69 goals, has Mitch Marner not been the person that has made the team tick in every season he's been in the league? Like it
In
across the almost 10 years?
Yeah, no, I know the argument is that like Matthews is dominant, but Mitch Marner is the quote unquote engine of the team when he's running
Yeah.
on all cylinders, like definitely. But coming into this year, and I would still say this is my answer now, because this is all what it comes down to, contract talk. The number. What is your number for Mitch Marner? What is your ceiling? To me,
Mhm.
it's the Matthews contract, right?
It,
Like,
it
are you
can
going
but it
higher than
can it be
13.25?
can it be over that? Because like you're not like you get money based on if I'm going to be completely honest, if you're a center and you score goals and you know who does that, Austin Matthews, and he has his number. It's drawn in the sand. I get the play driving thing, but there is a certifiable like correlation between like goal scoring and the amount of money that you make and like being a center, like all that stuff matters. Like
I
I
just
I
think about it from the Mitch Marner camp. Like, what is their argument when they come to the table? Their argument is look at the scoring table this season for the Maple Leafs. Look at where Matthews is. How can you not give us at the very least the
yes,
same as this guy? And they're just going to pretend that every year before this one didn't exist,
doesn't
whether that's right
happen.
or wrong.
Which is
But
which is how
that
they're
is how
supposed
they're
to
going.
that's how
Exactly
they go about it.
right. So
Yeah.
it's almost like, and the Leafs are going to come at it from the totally opposite spectrum, and the hope is you can meet in the middle. The question is, if they could meet in the middle, why haven't they done it
The
already?
the
And so that's
problem
why I'm concerned.
the problem was the problem is that the organization and not the leadership, like actually part of the leadership in charge, so not the full thing, did like let him not meet, like they didn't meet in the middle per se the last time. That's the problem, was that they gave
Different. I'm
in.
yes, 100%. But this is Brad Tree living now. He has
No,
the quote
a hundred
unquote.
percent.
He's gone through this process before where he's
Mm-hmm.
lost a big fish to free agency. Like I think he's kind of gone into this with, or I'm sure as I hope he's gone into this having quote unquote learned from his lessons, or at least has a different perspective on how to approach a pending free agent. So yeah, I don't like back to the specifics of kind of asking him to waive his no move clause. Is this maybe comparable to what the Avalanche, what happened with Mikko Rantanen and the Avalanche and the Hurricanes? Once again, Elliot Friedman has been reporting this even I think before um, the Carolina Dallas talks started, which we'll get into after. But the idea that the Avalanche and Mikko are negotiating a contract. The offer that we had heard Colorado finished with was 11.75. So they never got into 12s. And because of that, they allowed other teams to talk contract with Mikko. The Hurricanes come in, say, would you be receptive to a long term deal here? And he kind of, his camp says, yeah, sure, I would. Like, yeah, sounds all right, not thinking that that was a serious conversation. And Elliot's talked about how this happens with a lot of players. It's a pressure tactic when you're having a negotiation with a player and you say, listen, you want this number, go try and get it from someone else. And you'll see that maybe you can't, except in this case, the Hurricanes were willing to do it. Um, and Colorado, quote unquote, called Mikko's bluff. And that's what caught him off guard, this entire trade. He tells the Hurricanes yes beforehand, he never really meant it, right? So now you have this conversation with Brad Tree Living going to Mitch Marner and say, hey, we want to sign you. But if you don't want to sign with us, I'm gonna have to ask you this, or just not even like you're saying that in between the lines. That's not what Brad's saying, but the fact that the contract hasn't been signed yet, and from all reports, they've been trying
Made
to sign him
progress.
in this
Or
season. Yeah,
yes.
there's been talks throughout the season,
Mhm.
and we still don't have a contract. So this is Brad basically saying we've talked contract. This is like last not last resort, but this is the
It's your
other path.
follow. It's your fallback plan, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't
You're just
have
trying
you
you're trying to take care of the organization here by saying we can't lose this guy for nothing.
100%.
Let's Mikko Rantanen's on the table. He's willing to sign a long-term extension with us. Yeah, so it's still really hard to parse through kind of the mechanics of that entire interaction. And the other point that maybe, yeah, I don't know if we'll ever get confirmation is like who revealed this information. Is it
Yeah.
like the four options are the Leafs organization, Mitch Marner's camp, the Hurricanes organization, or Mikko Rantanen's camp? I don't really think it's Mikko Rantanen's camp. I feel like we can already throw that one to the bottom. I don't see
Mm.
why they would get this information
Do
out
you
there.
do you have an idea of who like any of the three? Like if
Yeah,
you were to put a
I uh
guess,
I worked on Leafs Talk last night with JD Bunkus and Sam McKee. Very good episode if anyone would want to watch. It was definitely an intense one. And JD threw it out there that he thinks it would be from, I think actually it might have even been Sammy, but
I think it
they
was
threw it out
Sammy.
there. They threw it out there that it's from like the Leafs organization. Yeah, and you know what? He makes a good point too because he basically says it puts the onus on Mitch Marner to make the
Yes.
decision. Um, Almost similar to the Vladdy stuff in a way, right? Like now that we kind of have an idea of what Vladdy was asking for, how many fans right now are siding with the Jays versus Vladdy? Because the latest from Vladdy was the that the final offer came under 600 million for
Yeah,
14 years, and he framed that as a like that was
that was a low
a
ball.
disappointment.
I
And
I
everyone's reaction to that is, brother, if that's your ask, I don't know, like if we're still mad about
um
you not
I
signing.
I I don't know. It's so tough to compare. Like I completely understand where that comparison comes in, but in a sport where the Blue Jays owner, also part owner of the Maple Leafs, well,
Yeah,
actually now 75% owner of the Maple Leafs,
majority
majority
owner,
owner. But they they don't have like a
no salary
that
cap.
there is no salary cap. Like that
Yeah,
is what it comes down to. I know we don't want to talk about it, and I know the cap is
it's
going
fair.
up $25 million over the next 3 years, but guess what? That's 3 years from now's problem. Like we got to
Yeah,
live in the
yeah,
present currently. But to that point though, with Vladdy, I understand, but it also feels like with the Jays stuff that they were lowballing him even when his value wasn't at 600 million. He said that the final offer came after 600 million, but they left that problem to fester. That's the thing. In this
yeah.
case, it does
You
feel
can't
like Brad kind of was getting ahead of it. For as much
definitely,
for
and
as
also
much as you
like
want to say, yeah.
yeah, in baseball, you can have those negotiations years in advance, right?
Hmm.
You can buy out someone's RFA years and just kick in a new contract. You can't do that in hockey. So
Yes.
you can only negotiate in the last year of the deal. You brought up like the cap stuff and everything. Maybe we can wrap up this part of the conversation with me. I'm gonna give you some cap projections here. I
No,
went ahead and
no,
looked at.
please.
I know, I know. I went ahead and looked at what the offseason could look like for the
Yeah,
Leafs
okay.
with some of the numbers that we'd be throwing around. So let's say the Mitch Marner number is 13.25. You match him to Austin Matthews, okay?
Okay.
And that I'm putting that out as kind of the high end projection from the Leafs if I was guessing today.
Hmm.
That's my guess today. I'm not saying that like he could get 14 mil in on the open market, but let's just say that's where it lands for the Leafs. And the JT number, I feel like the numbers we've been hearing more recently, and the fact that the deal hasn't been signed there, is that he's trending towards like 7 million. So let's give him 7 times 3. That's I think the Joe
Okay.
Pavelski contract in Dallas, or one of his latter contracts there. Okay.
I
Um,
have always said 6.5 would be
yeah,
the most I was
I
palatable with, but you know what? If it's an extra 500 grand,
I al-
I can
yeah,
stomach it.
it doesn't even have to be from that perspective. I just always try and project on the higher end because that gives
Mm.
us an idea of what's possible with like the quote unquote
With
worst case
the with
scenarios
less,
numbers
yeah,
wise, right?
for sure.
Then if anyone takes less, it's quote unquote gravy. So let's say JT 7 times 3. Another comparable there is like Claude Giroux in Ottawa. I think he was 6.5 times 3.
I think
Um, so
that
that's
was
another
also like 3 years ago.
exactly. So let's just say 7 times 3. And then the other big number you have to add this offseason is Matthew Knies' contract. And this is kind of where I'm at. You can't sign him to a long-term contract if you're keeping John Tavares and Mitch Marner at these numbers. The math does not math. Um, I have him right now on a bridge deal, a 3-year
Okay.
bridge deal that keeps him as an RFA where he'd be making 5 mil, five
Okay.
times three. Okay. Because I think that long-term deal is something more like 8 times 8, to be honest.
I
Right. You
I think
can't fit that in.
if you are him as well, I'm gonna go pro player here. If you are Matthew Nyes or any other player in that like 22, 23 age range, that's probably the deal you want to take is a 3-year
Yeah.
deal.
It works for both sides because the Leafs want to contend while they have the additions that they just added. We'll get into them later. But with that retention on multiple years, that's because you want to fit in as much talent as you can during those
100%.
contracts. So here's the thing with these three contracts. So Mitch Marner 13.25, JT at 7, Matthew Nyes at 5. And you just add in guys at like league minimum, like just re-signing Steven Lorenz and Pontus Holmberg, you're still above the cap by 250K. Like that,
Okay.
I'm already trying to squeeze that in. That is basically you trying to keep this roster for next year. So there's not really a world where you keep the same names on this team and get better next year, even with the cap
Hmm.
increase. Like the math does not math if you want to be a better team next year. So
Okay.
something has to give. And I don't
Yes.
think Mitch Marner's number is the number that's going to give.
Yeah, it
Either it's you,
doesn't seem like that.
so he's either here at 13.25 or higher, or he's gone. Like I don't know where that number comes down. That's kind of where I'm at. That's a very early look at the offseason numbers.
So
Yeah,
they definitely they have some money tied up like on the fringes, and I honestly I think that's the only way to get any sort of flexibility. So I'm thinking
yeah,
of guys like Max Domi, Kelly Yarncroke's at 2
yep.
David Camp's at 2, is it
2-4.
4?
So and Max Domi's 3.75. Here's the thing: all three of those guys have modified no trade clauses. All three
Yes.
of them. All three of them have some type of trade protection. It might be like just partial list. I don't have the exact numbers here, like a 10-team no trade or whatever, but it's
Yeah.
no it's no slam dunk that you're moving those guys. So that's why I can't just project that
I,
as like in the Leafs back pocket. Maybe they figure it out, but
that might have to be like you pay a little to get your flexibility again. And they've done
and
it before.
they
Listen,
have.
I get it. I get it. I completely get why you'd be hesitant to do that. But we already know this team isn't gonna pivot off of if they don't have the like if they have the option to, they're not pivoting off of the guys that make current double digit money. Like that's where you get your
Yeah.
money worth, or you pivot and you get rid of the guy that's played the most games, in this generation with Morgan Riley, who makes 7.5 and has had a pretty,
No move clause.
and there you go, right?
Yeah.
So,
So it's like I
so there's
can't
like no pivot unless you're doing
there's
minor.
no unless you're changing the names on this board, which involves not resigning John Tavares or Mitch Marner. You're basically your best case scenario is you're bringing back to me the best, like the same team as this year. Last thing I'll add here, 2025 unrestricted free agents, sorted by points. Leader right now is Mitch Marner with 79. Second is Matt Duchene with 64. I don't think Matt Duchene's coming here. And then it goes all the way to like Nick Ehlers at 56. JT's fourth at 55. Like they're the names. There's no Mitch Marner replacement in free
Yeah.
agency if you don't resign him.
Well, the Mitch
And your
Marner
JT,
replacement was
Mikko
there. It was
Rantanen,
Mikko
yeah.
Rantanen, right?
And
So
and my other point is the JT replacement doesn't really exist either. The JT replacement has to be another JT contract. I just think it's going to be it's not a great free agent crop. So Leafs are now in a bind if they don't sign Mitch Marner. There's not a great pivot. Mando, do you got any thoughts on the entire Mitch Marner conversation that we've just had before we move on?
I do have just one thought, and it is a bit of a pivot because obviously the offseason cap projections isn't really filtered into this piece of the conversation. But just watching Mitch Marner's press conference from yesterday, post game, obviously it
Yep.
was funny. We were chatting about it, and you know that the reporters were just vultures waiting for him to come out there. And in all honesty, probably shouldn't have been made available for post game, but he did score 2 goals in Colorado's victory over the Leafs.
I'm happy that
It
he
would it
did
would have been
though.
it would have been a bigger storm had he not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, but the Leafs, the way that they operate, it would have been tough to keep them out, but I would understand why they would have. Because Tavares even got asked about it. Craig Berube was asked about it as well in
Yeah.
minimal time. All that to say, he isn't the best in front of the media in the first place. Mitch Marner sort of wears his emotions on his sleeve, and he gets frustrated easily, and you can understand why. He is the pride of the city outside of the captain Austin Matthews for the most part, but he did look frustrated, and understandably so in this case. And for some small reason, Mitch Marner, obviously in the contract year, has had all the success he's had. You guys have sort of talked about it ad nauseum here, but I think he gained a little bit of more fan appreciation after these rumors came out, because you see a little bit of the stuff that he's had to deal with. He puts up 2 goals in a loss, 3-game losing streak, and everyone wants to talk about a proposed contract or proposed trade and him having to sort of come out and dispel the rumors this whole season. So he definitely was frustrated. We have some quotes about exactly what he said, obviously, in our rundown, but basic sentiment was, look, I've said this entire year, I don't want to talk about this. I had a feeling something like this might happen, which is a bit of a nod to saying, like, I know that not talking about contracts throughout the season is probably going to cause this issue. And with the Rantanen talks and things like that, like, it's probably not a surprise that the conversation was had before. If I'm not mistaken, the Canes have been interested in Marner for a number of years. I don't know if
I think
anything's ever come about.
going
Right?
back to the RFA contract, like
Yeah.
going
The
signing
teams
on to the
were
first one.
him like the Hurricanes, Columbus with the offer,
Columbus.
like the quote
Yeah.
unquote
Hmm.
supposed offer sheet. Yeah.
It was interesting because he's just obviously visibly frustrated, but you have to ask the questions. You have to, as a reporter, have to be in there and sort of get the scoop as best as
Yeah.
possible. But I think Mitch Marner gained a little bit more appreciation from fans to say, like, I see what he's going through. And I was obviously a little bit more like pushing things under the rug when you guys brought this up. I was thinking, you know what? No big deal. It's probably nice that the Leafs brass sort of were transparent, because imagine this news came out, or for some reason, like, the conversation and Mitch Marner was brought up and he wasn't included in this. Hey, just a heads up, the proposal was made, and at least they went to Marner's camp and said, this is what's happening. We're being transparent. And I was like, oh, maybe that's a good thing that's looked at positively. After seeing that press conference, I was a little bit more pushed towards your side of being stressed out about it. So I don't know if it's going to be the be all end all. I don't know if we should be too doomsday about it, but it was concerning. That's all I have to say watching the conference.
Concerning is a good way to frame it. Because yeah, at the end of the day, winning would fix everything, right? This
Yeah,
conversation, we can
for sure.
hopefully put it under the rug. We win 2-3 rounds. I think Mitch Marner could sign a blank check, and
Yeah.
most fans are going to be fine with it,
Happy.
right?
And you know
So
Yeah.
what? The same sort of narrative in a different space was said about Brady Tkachuk's press conference, what, a day ago, when he was
mhm.
quoted as emotional and upset about the Josh Norris trade, and everyone Sens Nation was up in arms about he's not going to resign, and everyone, Friedman, we had Alex Adams from Sportsnet on our general show,
Yeah,
Mm.
Sens reporter, and they were like, that's just nonsense. Like, look, winning cures all, and I'm sure nothing changes in Mitch Marner's case. So this offseason or this playoff run is going to be more important for the Leafs than any in the past for multiple reasons.
Less than 24 hours later, Brady Tkachuk then scores the overtime winner over like a tightly contested game. Like that's potential one, like wild
yeah,
card, like two wild card teams, scores the OT winner, gets on the public address system and is like, I love it here.
Yeah.
I'm ready to fight for this team. Like whether he means it or not. Like I don't know what his
he's the
true
type of guy I
intentions
think
are,
like
but
he
he
wears the emotions on his sleeve,
a
right?
hundred
Yeah,
percent. He is in the same ilk as Mitch Marner if we're going to talk about emotions. Man, yeah, if you are a Sens fan, you are probably like, please, please get this guy under
Yeah,
contract very soon.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
from
All right, Mando.
from
Yeah, thanks for your thoughts there, brother.
thanks for your input there, pal.
I hope I can get more of the optimism that you were feeling at least before the press conference. Hopefully, we can get a little bit more of that back in Leafs Nation down the stretch run. Yeah,
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope. But thanks,
yeah,
guys. We'll continue the chat and we'll get back at it. But you guys keep doing your thing here.
For sure. So from potential Mikko Rantanen trades, we do finally get Mikko Rantanen trade part two. I said this a couple weeks ago. It was like 2 weeks ago. I was like, I would love to see if Rantanen got traded a second time, but in my head, I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't. I
I
honestly, I think he's
I
staying.
think yeah, I think last pod we came and said 25% because it was just
Mhm.
like just such a crazy thought to have.
We didn't see a world.
Uh,
Yeah.
Eric Tulsky looks like a mad scientist, and he did a mad scientist kind of thing here, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah,
So
we'll
he
get to the Leafs ads after this, but I do think like dovetailing from the Mitch Marner stuff, we got to do Mikko Rantanen talk.
100%. It kind of like goes hand in hand. So Mikko Rantanen, he's heading to the Lone Star State with the Dallas Stars. For Logan Stankoven, um, conditional first round picks in 2026 and 2028, and third round picks in 2027 and 2028. So four picks in total, two firsts, two thirds, and Logan Stankoven, who's a I love watching Logan Stankoven play. But first things first, Carolina, how do we think that they did given all the circumstances? Like they've been in
Yeah,
the news for the past what 2 months now in terms of
yeah,
will they
man.
won't they? So
They,
how
they
did they
were
come out?
they were almost like a sleeper team just in terms of like the national narrative before the Mikko Rantanen trade. Like they were having a good season, but just kind of doing their own thing. And then as soon as they made that Rantanen trade, the spotlight's been on them, right? They can't avoid it. Everyone's looking at them in a different light. I'm happy that you want to cover the Hurricanes perspective of this first. This is kind of how things end up when you remove the middleman of Mikko Rantanen. Essentially, the Carolina Hurricanes turned Martin Necas, Jack Drury, a second and a fourth, into Logan Stankoven, Taylor Hall, two firsts and two thirds. So when you give yourself the amnesia medicine and just look at that trade, I think you feel pretty good as a Hurricanes fan and the Hurricanes org, don't you?
Yes, sure. I do still think like they definitely wanted something more present because they are more in the
High
present of a
ends,
team. Yes,
yeah,
100%. But you also have to say, like, taking out the middleman here, where were they going to get the present from? Like, how many teams could give up the present to also give you the present plus a future, basically? I don't think that offer was out there. So you might have to just take the best of both worlds, I guess you could say. Like Logan Stankoven is there for the present, but he's also going to be there now for the future. Is he
yeah. And you
21?
couldn't I'm not too sure. I can
Or is
look
he
up here, but either
doesn't matter.
way, like Martin Necas only had 1 year beyond this year, and he's been in trade talks for a while. So
Yeah,
even
and
though
I
he's
don't
even on the
he
younger
wasn't going to
side,
stay. I don't think he was going to stay.
it doesn't seem like it. He looks like a perfect fit in Colorado. We saw that firsthand
Yeah,
yesterday. But
I know.
yeah, like Stankoven to me, he's a downgrade from Necas, but for how long? Like there's a possibility that Stankoven gets to that Necas level from when you
E-
traded him,
even if
and then
they
everything else
get
is gravy. Yeah,
even if they get to the same level, then you
I
also
would say
get like
even if
four
he's
picks.
75%, let's say Stankoven's 75%, those two first round picks still take you way over the value of just Martin Aegis. Like it's
Yes, the problem though with that is what do you do with those picks? Like it's very,
yeah,
very hard. It should be harder as a professional organization to fumble multiple first round picks, but we've seen it happen before. So do they now use these picks? My guess is that they're going to use these picks as trade chips to get other like assets for the present because they
yeah,
shouldn't be a team looking to the future. So that's that. If I'm Carolina, that's what I'm looking to do personally. I'm not Eric Tulsky though. I don't have the crazy hair, so I don't know. Like, what do
yeah.
you think?
Um, I honestly I feel like I'm giving them maybe not too much credit is the word, but I feel good about their spot because they have a very, very, very good draft record
They
recently.
do.
Okay. So they have one of the top prospects right now in the AHL in Bradley in the Doe. I'm gonna pull up his stats here because I've just been seeing his stats on my feed. I feel like kind of all season. Yeah, 39 points in 48 games for the Chicago Wolves. He's only 19 years old, so he's on the come up. They already inserted Jackson Blake into this lineup, and he's fitting pretty well.
He's
They have
awesome.
Scott Morrow on the blue line, who's a blue chipper blue liner. They have Alexander Nikishin
I was
in
just
the
about to say
KHL.
that kid looks
He's the
great.
captain. He's the captain of his KHL team, and I think he's like setting like defenseman records right now.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm even missing someone here. They have another Russian guy. I forget his name, and he I think is like on pace to break like a Kirill Kaprizov like record. Like they're
His name is going to be Mikhail
it's
Mikolenko. Just something.
something. There's at least one K in there. I'll tell you that for sure. Anyways, like I've just rattled off five names there who are like really, 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 really good prospects. Oscar Fisker. What they have another one too, a Swedish guy too. Like I gotta look up their organization. They got so many guys, so they can either draft more studs or they can flip them. Like you said, they're in a really good spot. Like you mentioned there to me for the future, but like that can be the short term future. The the part where you're disappointed is this is supposed to be a cup run year, and definitely
Mhm.
Mikko Rantanen helps you on the cup run this year. And Tulsky kind of admitted this in his presser after the deadline. He kind of ran out of time, or else he maybe would have flipped those first round picks before the end of
Doing
the
something
deadline
else.
period on Friday.
Mm.
He kind of admitted he spent too much time on Amico Rantanen and stuff and didn't he was behind the eight ball on all the other trades, right? A lot
Yeah.
of teams already got into more advanced talks. Tougher to get a deal done when you're behind the eight ball. So that's my Carolina perspective. Maybe on the other side we can take a look at Dallas.
Yeah. So we will definitely look at Dallas after our little break. And we are back. So we before the break, we talked about what Carolina got in return for Mikko Rantanen, but now for Dallas, Christian, what are they going to be getting? Like we know what Mikko Rantanen is as a player, but what are they going to be getting in particular joining their top six?
I would even stretch it to top nine. Not that Mikko Rantanen's going to be on their third line, but I mean, really, if they wanted to, they freaking could because their top nine is ridiculous now. I'm going to give you these names
Mhm.
here. Jason Robertson, Rupe Hintz, Mikko Rantanen, Mason Marchment, Matt Duchene, Mikael Granlund, who might be one of the more underrated dads from dads. Maybe
Yeah.
he is a
He
dad.
is a dad.
Uh,
He's 34.
deadline deadline ads. Maybe that's the short form there. Yeah,
The
Mikael
dads?
Granlund. Yeah, Jamie Benn, Wyatt Johnston. Right now, rounding out the top nine is Evgeny Dadonov. Come playoff time, maybe that name is Tyler Sagan, which gives you a fourth
Mm,
line of Dadonov, Sam Steele, Maverick Bork, who's one of their top prospects. That is absolutely
scary.
filthy. That is
Yeah.
beyond scary. Rantanen last night scored a nice looking goal there. I think it was a power play marker, getting it down
Mhm.
on one knee and throwing it in. He also got absolutely demolished by
Dude,
Jake
I was
Mullin,
just about to say,
flattened like a
not just
pancake.
once, he got
Yeah.
smoked. Like it was so much. I think the NHL made a compilation on Instagram for the amount of times he was
Wow.
getting smoked. Or maybe it
Yeah.
was Sportsnet. Somebody had a compilation. It was like 4 or 5 hits. Like
Yeah.
a couple of them were just like rubouts on the board, but like there was that one in open ice. So it's whew, man, he
Hey
got
man.
caught.
Welcome back to the West, Miko. I hope you enjoyed your vacation out east, where maybe the play isn't as
Ugh.
rough and tumble sometimes, but no, he's
Yeah.
right back in the thick of it there. It's an embarrassment of riches in Dallas. The Wyatt Johnston piece of business as well, 5 year deal. I think his AAV's there in the eights. Kudos to him for being one of the few guys who we always get on for. We always say like these younger guys always talk about, or like we talk about why they should take a 5 year or like medium term deal versus the 8 year quote unquote discount.
Mhm.
Why Johnston didn't do that in this case. Same agent as Mikko Rantanen. But yeah, he took that 5 year deal that looks like it's going to be aging pretty well. Mikko Rantanen's deal, we haven't even brought that up yet. He
Yeah, I
signed
was
immediately
just
upon
about to say.
arrival, right? So he signs a 8 year deal, 12 mil annually. I'll be totally honest. I thought he was a slam dunk for at least being in the 13s. I don't care where he would have signed in for agency, if it
Yeah.
was tax-free state or not. I thought that was a given. I would have even like not been surprised if he ended up at 14 flat. I really wouldn't have.
My
So
guess was honestly like 13.5 if I'm gonna be like hand
sure,
on my
cut it
heart.
in the
I thought,
middle, like market
yeah.
value. I thought for sure that's where we were going to end up, no matter the team. So definitely consider me surprised that it only took 12 mil to get it done. I guess that really goes to show you that the Carolina fit didn't really have to do with the money. Just destination. Maybe the play style comes into to play a bit, but slam dunk for the Stars. Absolutely
I
slam dunk,
I
even
think it
giving
should
up the two
also
firsts.
I think it should also be noted, like, man, what other place would a Finnish player like to play other than Dallas? Like, you got Miro Heiskanen, you have Rupe Hintz there, and then
Yeah,
you add Mikko Rantanen, and like,
the top three
this is a
places are probably Dallas, Carolina, and Florida,
and Florida, right? Yeah,
right?
yeah, I
Yeah.
guess. But yeah, no, yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, I was thinking Carolina, and then yeah, I forgot about
Yeah,
Sebastian Aho.
Kotkaniemi, Sebastian Aho. Yeah, like,
Stupid me.
but once again, I think it goes to show that wasn't really that didn't play as much of a factor as maybe we thought. Um,
Mm,
it's he's got to be one of the bigger villains, maybe in the entire league right now. Like he's going to be hated in Carolina, and he's going to be hated in Colorado now because of where he landed. Right, like
yeah.
that's he got rerouted back into the Central. Might be facing them in round one in the Mikko Rantanen Bowl. Like that's going to be juicy
I
stuff.
I would also like to know if so they were in on him now, like Dallas was in on him now after he's been retained once. Um, he goes to Carolina. I wonder
Yeah,
were they peeking around at him in Colorado? Like, do you think that's because I feel like
I
Colorado
don't know.
would not like they
Yeah,
wouldn't even entertain that type of offer, right?
I think
So,
you're right. I think you're right. They probably I don't know if we got any wind of negotiations with anyone other than Carolina originally, but
mhm.
you're spot on that Dallas would have been honestly they might have been the 31st team on the list of places that Colorado would want to send him to, right? Like I think that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. So
I yeah,
listen,
not
that's
too
the best
sure.
forward group in the league. They've soared up to the number one
It,
Stanley Cup
it it it
odds.
depends, man. Like they have a killer forward group, but it's like it's them, it's Florida, like, and
I'm
then there's
taking
everybody else, honestly.
it's true. No, it's true. And that like last year my cup picks were like cup final was Florida versus Dallas. Didn't come through
Could very well
on the
see it this
Dallas
year.
side. It's once again in full effect. Don't ask me what my cup pick was this year because it was some team playing in Tennessee that
Mm.
definitely yeah.
I forgot that we had them.
But hey, I'm
I
pretty sure
always forget we had them so like rated so high,
I
especially
was
seeing
I
how
was so
they
high on them,
played.
yeah.
But
I think Mr. Mando here had Dallas as his cup pick from the beginning. So that looks stronger than ever by
oh
far.
yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm good on Dallas unless you got something else.
No, I mean, I do want to bring up like what if the Leafs had ended up pulling through that deal, like pushing through that deal.
Yep.
Um, does he sign 12 by 8? What does a number look like in Toronto as compared to Dallas? What do you think?
Yeah, you know, the tax free stuff probably does come into play, and it probably is like I'm saying, like I think it's 13.25. I think that's basically the Leafs limit right now
Yeah,
on every
go to
superstar
Matthews.
player that they would bring
And
in. Just yeah.
you're if you bring in somebody like me, like we know what Miko is, and this is not to denigrate Mitch. Like I know we were just fighting about nickel and diming Mitch, but it's like if you are also if you're putting Miko on the same pedestal as Matthews, is that more palatable for a Leaf fan, giving him 13.25 rather than Mitch 13.25? Like I can't say
I
yes or no
probably
personally, but
yeah, I probably wouldn't like it wouldn't matter too much to me. Um, I it's yeah, like you know what? At the end of the day, you probably for this year especially would like Mitch has been the better player than Mikko Rantanen. Like if you're doing that one for one, you almost without the extensions involved, if it's just straight rental swap, like you're kind of losing that deal this year.
mhm.
But um, yeah, it's about not losing a superstar free agent for nothing, and that's why the Leafs are in it in the first place. I think was to kind of ensure give themselves an insurance policy that they at least have one of the two superstars, right? It would be a great problem to have that you can choose between the two. Yeah, yeah, can get back into Leafs though because
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
100%. So on deadline day in the early or afternoon window. So the Leafs, we saw yesterday we had two new faces entered the lineup. So in the early afternoon, the Leafs acquired Scott Laughton from the Philadelphia Flyers and a 2025 fourth round pick, and a 2027 sixth rounder. In exchange to Philadelphia, they received the Leafs 2027 first rounder and prospect Nikita Grabenkin, Mr. Forecheck, back check, paycheck. I was so sad to
work,
see him
sleep,
go.
work, go Leafs, go.
Go Leafs,
Yeah,
go. Yeah.
yeah, it was
And later in the same window, within a couple hours of each other, the
it's
Leafs
actually
also,
this one came through after the deadline. We were worried that maybe the
it
Lotto
did.
move was the only one, and
It did
this one
get pushed
squeaked through
through.
at the end. Yeah,
It did get pushed through late. There was a lot of deals that came in like
yeah,
at the buzzer, or after the buzzer, but at the buzzer. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the Leafs acquired defenseman Brandon Carlo from the Boston Bruins for Fraser Minton, a 2026 first round pick and a 2025 fourth round pick in the same in a corresponding transaction. The Leafs also shipped defenseman Connor Timmins and forward Connor Dewar to the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for a 2025 fifth round pick. And I believe the Pittsburgh Penguins are also retaining, is it Pittsburgh or was it Boston that retained 50% of Brandon Carlo's deal
I think it's Boston who's doing the retaining here.
in exchange for the first, like
They
that
are,
first
yeah,
round, fourth
yeah.
rounder? Yeah. Okay.
So Brandon Carlo went. He was a $4.1 million cap hit. And the Bruins are retaining 615,000. So Carlo comes in at I think that's
Did I say
3-4.
50%?
I think yeah, yeah. So like his actual cap hit though, like the actual number coming on our side, I think is 3,485,000 for Brandon Carlo.
For the next 2 years as well.
Yes, yes.
So we did see them in action yesterday, and I said this to the guys before. I was like, whoever decided to put the Leafs in high altitude playing in Colorado the day after the trade deadline day you are a true sicko. You really are. What a tough time for the like, regardless of the score, just what tough
Yeah.
circumstance to come into, like, especially for those two guys playing your first game in a new system at high altitude. And we saw it
Yeah.
right away. Oh, that is right. Producer Mando just sending us a thing. Brandon Carlo, Colorado Springs native. They did say it early in the broadcast yesterday. So it was
Yeah.
kind of crazy making his Leaf debut in his home state,
I
right?
think
So
Mando's alluding to maybe he's used to that thinner air. And I mean, if you look at the
mm,
score sheet, he played the most out of any Leaf, right? Over 22 minutes more than anyone. So
The one thing I
yeah,
do want to add that was funny though was that watching the broadcast and seeing Morgan Riley and Carlo go dash two within like the first five
oh,
minutes and going,
oh my
it was
lord.
it was
I don't know.
Yeah.
literally like post within 30 seconds of the game. Like Brock Nelson
Bro,
will
oh,
get to
he
maybe
had a game
after.
and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great
He
shrewd, that was a shrewd signing, shrewd trade from the Avs. Holy,
they paid through the nose, but hey, look pretty good last night. Looked like a seamless fit. Crazy how he goes from like maybe one of the slowest teams in the NHL
to
to
the
the
absolute
fastest and
fastest.
just like easy peasy, no transition needed.
Yeah.
Definitely on our side though, it was yeah, that was a dog's breakfast kind of a game as a whole. Definitely so for Scott Laughton, kind of from start to finish. I think he only played or like in maybe like 10 to 12 minutes. Um and yeah, he was kind of all over the ice in places that you didn't want him to be, especially on the penalty kill. He looked out of place on the McKinnon power play goal. Not
Oof.
just when McKinnon scored was he pushing for the blue liner instead of pressuring McKinnon, but even before that, there was someone else who had a chance, and he kind of had the same motion, maybe stuck in Tortorella's system still. So this is going to be a transition period for sure. You mentioned like a harder scenario to be thrown in than Colorado in your first game. So I was thinking to myself yesterday, um, when the Leafs acquired Ryan O'Reilly, and that was a little bit before the deadline. And then on deadline day, they got Luke Shen,
Mm.
Jake McCabe, Sam Lafferty, and who else am I forgetting here? Eric
Nolan.
Gustafson for
Oh no, yeah.
Rasmussen. Yeah, Nolan
You're
Troy was
right.
with
He
O'Reilly,
was
but
a
yeah,
part
Eric
of that
Gustafson as well.
O'Reilly deal, yeah.
We added 6 guys in a span of like a couple of weeks, and most of them on deadline day. Do you remember in 2022 who we played our first game against after that deadline? It might
After
have
the
honestly
deadline?
been it might have been deadline night or the day after, probably the day after. But I do remember this vividly, and I looked it up. We went into Edmonton, who had just acquired Matthias Ekholm, and we got
Mm,
smoked. We got lathered by the Oilers. We
yeah.
lost 5-2,
For some
right?
reason, I always thought the debut game, and it definitely wasn't, was that game. It must have been the game after against Buffalo where O'Reilly had, did he have a
So
hat trick or was it 2 goals that night?
he had a hat trick against Buffalo, but that was, I believe, that was his second game. I think he got either a goal or an
That's,
assist in his debut, and then his second game was in Buffalo, and we absolutely tore them to smithereens. But remember,
yeah.
that O'Reilly trade broke a little bit before the deadline because it was a
Mhm.
surprise. Yeah,
It was like
it
close
was
to a
a
week.
exactly. So most of our deadline stuff was on deadline day. That was one of the craziest days as a Leaf fan. But I'm just bringing it up because we kind of thought maybe the sky was falling down on that day too. We were like, oh my god, we just changed a third of the roster. We look awful. Jake McCabe sucks. Look at that guy. Like everything turned out okay, right?
Yeah, I
Especially
mean
Jake McCabe. They
the
won a
only
goddamn
time,
playoff series.
yeah, I was about to say that's the only time they've won a playoff series. So
So, and listen, Brandon Carlo too. He did get better as the game went on. He had that awesome glove save on Brock Nelson. That was really cool. But
I got a question. Did you clip that yesterday?
100%,
Yeah,
100%
okay,
that
I
was
knew
clipped.
it. I knew.
You better believe
Did,
it. Yeah.
did they ask for that clipped or did you be like, were
No,
you like,
no.
I'm clipping this?
Yeah, they don't ask for too much because a lot of it is pretty obvious of like what would be needed.
Yeah,
Yeah, they showed that replay a couple of times, and it was just yeah, it was really cool viz.
that's a cool
So
one,
yeah,
especially
it
in the
was a
slow
cool
mo.
one.
I
It was
did
a cool
like
one.
that.
Let's talk about what they gave up first. They paid a
Hmm.
lot for both of these guys.
Yeah,
It's tough to see where Ben can go. I'm happy that it's to a place like Philly where he should thrive. I think he'll be really well liked there. Definitely fits the style. Could see Torts really liking him. Maybe he goes on a Mitch wing at some point.
hmm,
Um, but yeah, like we always heard Scott Laughton was going to go for a first. I'm a, I'm a, I'm pretty happy that we got the retention too. I think the
yeah,
retention makes it a lot more palatable. 1.5 million for this year and next year is really, really good. And I think we all feel confident that if Scott Laughton shows himself to be a worthy addition, he'd be open to resigning here. He's an Oakville
yeah,
guy. So that I do think you have to factor that into the price. And if you do end up getting him on a deal that I don't see how he's getting more than kind of what he's making right now. Like he's gonna probably get on his next deal 3 million. So I think he's an ideal third liner. I think that's where you want him. And what the thing is you want him with other third liners that complement him. Who knows if a Max Domi Scott Laughton pairing works in the end? We also know that he doesn't always play center. He's sometimes better
he'll
on the
go on the
wings.
wing.
So he's a
Hmm.
like maybe it's a platoon to take a baseball term at center. Maybe sometimes it's Domi, sometimes it's Laughton. Maybe Cal Yarncroke ends up on that line, and we know that he can take some right-handed face-offs. So
Yeah, hmm,
it's still not a perfect fit, but I've mentioned this before. I'm a big fan of Scott Laughton. He passes my test of just cheering like a Viking when he scores a goal. I
yeah.
cannot wait for him to start scoring. I'm really looking forward to it.
We said
Um,
this too. He took
yeah,
both of those guys took the two numbers of the guys
yes,
that they were coming in for, basically.
yeah. It's
Um,
gonna take some adjusting.
I hope we get to see more than one goal in over 60 games for Scott Laughton than Connor Dewar had because I really wanted
I
the
think,
dude to work out, but
yeah,
didn't really work out. I mean,
yeah.
he wasn't put in a position really, let's say, to work out for the most.
Remember Connor Dewar's goal was also like off his butt or something. Like it was
It
like
was
a
bad.
it
The
was in that black jersey as well.
last year he had a couple more chances, let's say, and even at the beginning
Okay,
of this
yeah,
year.
sorry. You know what it was last year, yeah, that
But
I'm thinking of.
also,
Yeah.
yeah, he wasn't doing himself any favor. Sorry,
Yeah,
no more Connor Dewar talk until he
yeah, it's
scores
okay.
for us.
Anyways, you had to get rid of Timmins and Dewar to make the cap work. Really, the
Mhm.
Leafs couldn't add anything other than what they did. I was just looking at it right now. I'm like, oh, maybe you could have fit a Brandon Tanev in. You couldn't. You couldn't.
Mhm.
The cap, we were capped out. So expensive for Laughton. But I think retention is huge, and I think the term is huge. You can kind of say the same thing, copy and paste for Brandon Carlo. First and Minton is a lot to pay. It's kind of on par with what we paid for Jake McCabe, though, which I believe was the two firsts, right? Or first and
Yeah.
a like conditional second. You got him on 2 years of term afterwards. A little bit more expensive for Carlo because he's still at 3.5 versus 2 mil with McCabe. I think Carlo's maybe a little bit younger. He's right-handed and he's 6'5". Brad Living just that's his dream right there, right? That's his dream guy. When he was on Kipper Born After, he had some pretty funny quotes if you take them out of context. Just like he did at his first presser, like as a Leafs GM, when he was just talking about what he likes on the blue line. So that's his favorite place to add, and that's the exact archetype he's looking for. Um, yeah, I don't mind the move because it now gives you basically five defensemen that you're locked in on. And it's just kind of who's that number six? Is it going to be Benoit or is it going to be Philippe Myers? Neither one is
Eh,
really right. It's not great.
locked
It's not
in.
great. Same conversation as we just had on with the forward group. And I don't know, like yeah, we have a hope and a prayer for Yanni Hakanpää to show up, but that's probably not happening. So it's they improved on both sides of the ice,
Their
defense,
needs.
forward. Yeah, I don't. Do you have a take? Because I don't know how much really we can oust there is to get in with Carlo because it feels like they're going to try him and Riley. If that doesn't work, I guess you flip him and Tanev to see if the pairings work. But like you have options now. So
Um,
if that,
my other guess
yeah,
would maybe dropping Riley down to the third line or third pair,
go like
sorry,
an OEL
and
Carlo,
OEL with him. But
you could.
that's
So
like
it's
it's an option, but I think that is your break in case of emergency
yes,
option, if we're gonna be
I think
honest. Because
I think so
it's
too.
not because I don't want OEL and Carlo together. I think that's a waste of like that at that point
Yeah,
it's like Morgan Riley, what are you doing here, buddy? And I love Morgan
yeah.
Riley with my whole heart, but also it comes a time when you got to take feelings out of the mix. And if you can't get this to work right now, Mr.
The
Mo,
onus is on him. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, dude. Like there's
Once
other
again, the
spots
problem
where
is it like
I get it, I get
we
it.
can win this argument, but the problem is no move clause. So
I
I don't
100% I get it, but yeah,
it's just got it's gotta work out. That's kind of the only way that this ends up well, like with Morgan Riley, is he's gotta figure it out. And yeah, we'll see come playoff time. We know we've had the conversation so many times. Last
the
year he
one
didn't really show up, but
the one thing I will say is that offensively, Mo has looked a bit more threatening and dangerous, I'd say, over the past month, especially like over like
I think
the
even last
road
night I
trip.
noticed him more like just a little bit more of a
Yeah,
concerted effort. Yeah.
I honestly
Yeah.
on the road, Morgan Riley looks like a
He's a
much
road
more
warrior, eh?
improved player, yeah, than when
Yeah.
he's at home for whatever
Yeah.
reason. If they can get that Morgan Riley both home and away, that would be great. Obviously, the defensive lapses are always going to be there. And a lot of
Yeah.
people like to point out, -2, -3 on any given night. But I think if this pairing finds some sort of chemistry quick, it could be something very
Hopefully
useful
it
for the
sticks.
future. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing.
Hopefully it sticks. Honestly, you know what? Let's leave the lineup talk till down the road because we're gonna see it kind of play out in real time.
It's also tough to
Um
do it like based off one game. Like, you know what I
Definitely.
mean?
Yeah. More just like the machinations of like who plays in the top
Yeah,
six from our options right now. But like I said, we can leave that one. We gotta talk Brad Marchand.
100%.
We gotta talk Brad Marchand.
Yeah, we did.
Um
We kind of left like the whole trade deadline right to the
no,
end,
it's okay. This is where
but
we're gonna start though. Yeah.
we
Um,
do.
I,
Yeah,
I want to tell a story, and
give
I
it to
can
me.
give like the trade return here because it's very simple. It's Brad Marchand of the Florida Panthers for a conditional second round pick. Conditions on it are either it's either 25 or 50% of the games that Marchand has to appear in for the Florida Panthers in their first two playoff rounds. Nonetheless, I'm in the office and the deadline's coming down. I'm working on at that point it would have been the fan pregame show as an editor. So yeah, just like doing socials, description, title for podcast, putting it out there. And you just heard an audible gasp in the office from every single part of the space. Just like people at the assignment desk, what? The people at 590, no way. People down at the web desk, no, you're kidding me. It was just everyone was in kind of pandemonium. And no, it wasn't like people were like screaming or anything, but just in the office, that was the most kind of interesting moment I've had. Just hearing everyone react in real time to Brad Marchand becoming a Florida Panther. That one will stick with me.
I
Yeah.
wonder
What
how
was your first
many
reaction?
I wonder how many trades like that will get people like kind of like
This is up there, man.
stopping. It's got to
Yeah,
be up there.
that's
100%.
big time up there. What was your gut
Um
reaction to seeing it on your phone?
so I didn't see it in real time like other people
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
I saw it probably post, but I did catch it post like very, very close to when it was announced.
This is another one that
Uh
came in right at 3 p.m.
yeah, I mean, I was very, very
Sad
surprised.
or
Like,
angry?
well, to see where he went, it definitely because I saw that
Yeah,
first before
yeah,
the Brandon Carlo news. Like that was what came
yeah,
up first for me. So I was
yeah.
like, I
You're
saw
like
the
just
reaction
you're
and I was just like,
kidding me.
and I was like, oh my God. Then I thought about the Marchand Bennett
Sam
Kachuk line,
Bennett,
and I was
yeah,
like, ah. And
yeah.
then I saw the Leafs trade, and I was like,
Got
okay,
Carlo.
poof.
It made you feel a little
That
bit
was
better,
a
but it's yeah,
that was my chicken soup for the soul.
yeah,
The Brandon Carlo
yeah,
move because I was like, okay, at least I
yeah.
could we could live with that as much as that just hurt my soul to see. I listen, I know a lot of Bruins fans. I can't even imagine what they must have been going through. I will bring up the stat on here. It's been said before. First time since 2002, so we were 2 years old, that one of Patrice Bergeron, Zdeno Chara, and Brad Marchand aren't playing, aren't in the lineup for the Boston
Yep,
Bruins. Like how
yep.
ridiculous of a stat that is. 23
No,
years in the making.
they are the cultural touchstones of what it means to be a Boston Bruin, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, they're gonna have to transition to Charlie McAvoy, David Pastrnak, and Jeremy Swayman. We'll see if they can hold up that mantle as well as the past trio. But yeah, that's this is a crazy moment in time where the Bruins are finally looking like they're closing the door on a window, at least for this year. Like we'll see what happens in the
Yeah.
off season, but kind of surreal to see happen, and surreal as hell for him to end up in
They're
Florida.
they're at least
Yeah,
closing the doors on an era because that
yeah.
is
Oh,
the
without a
last
doubt,
piece of their 2011 cup.
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
no one
So
left on the roster. Yeah, it's here's the number one kind of not dilemma, but this is what's top of mind for me coming out of this Martian stuff that I don't know if I've heard anyone kind of talk about yet. He is the preeminent villain of the NHL, right? Like, is there anyone even that's retired now?
Matthew
Let's say
Kachuk,
like
like that's it.
right,
Like the
like so.
one
But
of the Kachucks, like
let's go over an entire career, like reputation from start to like. I think he is number one on the public enemy list. Like just from a fan perspective, of you could survey all the teams in the league, he ends up number one.
like
He
currently still playing or like all time.
even if you want to stretch it to like recently retired guys, even if you go cap era, if you say
Yeah,
number one villain in salary cap NHL history,
it's
he's number
it's
one. He's
it's
number
him
one.
and it's guys like Max
Tom
Talbot
Wilson.
and Sean
Those
Avery.
are
Or are you saying
yes, but
like those guys are
I think
hated because of their antics? I mean, I guess the same thing with
I
Brad
think
Marchand, but
yes, but I think the reason that I put Brad Marchand, Brady Kachuk, Matthew Kachuk, Tom Wilson, Sam Bennett now, those guys are actual hockey players too,
yes,
right?
yes,
And so
100%.
not only are you pissed when they have a dirty hit or get away with a call, you're also pissed when they scored in your goddamn net,
Yeah,
right?
they
So
they are
Brad Marchand, yeah,
they fill your face in with punches. They'll slam your
yes,
head on the ice. They'll
yes,
score,
yes,
and then they'll smile in your face as they're going to the bench.
yeah.
Like
So he is. he is the
The
top
king,
boss.
a
He is the
hundred percent.
kingpin of all villains in the NHL. And maybe we start to have a little bit more respect for him this year because of the Team Canada stuff. And he also hasn't had as many antics in recent years. Like he's kind of calmed down a bit, right? It's true. But I'm still putting him number one. And so it feels very weird for the number one villain to say, I want to go to the new number one villain squad. He's now like going from kingpin to a henchman. I don't like that. I don't like that. I think that's bad for his quote unquote villain reputation to kind of like pass the mantle on to the next villains. I would have wished he went somewhere that is in desperate need of a villain and he turns whatever team he goes to into a heel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
the
So
Florida Panthers were already heels. They
yeah,
didn't need to become more heely.
I do
And for
have a
Brad
question.
Marchand, this is, yeah. Okay. What do you got?
I do have a question for you. Heading into 2025, which did you
Yeah.
think you would see first? A John
Yeah. Yeah.
Cena
Yeah.
heel turn or
Yeah.
a Brad
I
Marchand
saw
heel turn?
I
Heel
saw so
turn.
many I saw so many people like making that connection. Like the Florida Panthers took our soul, memes of photoshopping Marchand's face. Like everyone did a fantastic job with that.
Love the
Um,
memes.
yeah, no, they did such a great job. But do you get what I'm saying though? Like
Yes.
if he went to, let's think of the other teams involved.
If he
Vegas
went
is
to the
already a
Leafs?
heel.
Vegas,
So,
Vegas.
but
Oh,
Vegas is
okay.
already a heel, man, though. They're
Oh, I see
already
what
a
you're
heel,
saying.
I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Right?
Well,
So
I
I'm
guess
trying
the
to think if he
Leafs
went
are
to the Leafs are
the
kind
Leafs
of
are
a
heels
heel.
already too.
We're kind of babyface and heel at the
No, no,
same
no.
time.
We are heels
Yeah.
for everybody
Okay.
except for the Leaf fans.
Sure.
Like there's
Fair.
no
Fair.
question about it.
So what's the babyface team that he could have went to turn them heel that we would have been like, oh my god, John Cena just turned heel. Like who is that?
I
Is
thought
it the
Corey Perry was
Oilers?
gonna do it. I was just gonna say I thought Corey Perry
Okay.
was gonna do it for the Oilers, but
Okay.
maybe it's the terrible twosome there if
Yeah.
that
Like
happened.
so I think I would have enjoyed that experience more. Even when I take away, I'm trying to not be biased from
What
the Leaf perspective, but I think that would have been more entertaining because I feel like
I
he now
have
loses some of the villain reputation.
I do have
Yeah,
another answer for you. What if he joined the Colorado Avalanche instead to play
that's a
alongside
good
Nate
one.
McKinnon?
That's a really good one because I think if you polled fans across the league, the Colorado Avalanche would poll very well in terms of likable teams. So I think Brad Marchand ending up in Colorado would definitely give a hit to their likability and turn them from a face to a heel. I think
I
that's a
got
really good one.
I got one here that
Yeah.
already sort of is a heel, but it just would have made their
Okay.
season somehow even more tumultuous. Imagine the Vancouver Canucks trying to make the playoffs by bringing in
Yeah.
Brad.
No,
Just let
that
EP40 learn from BM63.
An
I
even worse heel than
I
JT Miller.
I think we'd like yeah no that would be crazy. Like imagine Canucks fans like the first time he touches the ice, like you're booing him. I don't even care if he's wearing
Yeah,
your jersey, he hasn't even played a game yet. You're
man,
booing him, and I
I
almost wonder if they just like kept they would just keep that as a tradition
it's
in his
muscle
entire
memory for
tenure.
them.
Yeah, and he would love it. He would love
Yeah,
it, right? Like
honestly,
he enjoys the pain. Like that's the whole
that
point of
probably
this.
eggs
Yeah.
them on even more. Honest, if
Wow.
we're gonna be
So
completely honest,
we came guys. You came with some really good options here. I think Avs and in the wacky world of
in
NHL
the
dreams that
bizarre
never
world,
happened. In
yeah,
Bizarro World, the Canucks definitely take the cake, but realistically, Avs are a really good show. So yeah, that was I just thought about that with Brad Marchand. Doesn't really have to do with the hockey part of it, but I don't know. At the top villain, he now officially drops, I think, in the rankings. He just did that. So I think the most villain thing he could have done was to hold on for dear life to his kingpin title as top villain, and he didn't. So yeah, we'll
yeah.
see what happens there. You have another trade to talk about? Yeah.
So on that note, it's not like the state of Florida wasn't the only ones who were buying
Yeah.
at this. Oh, sorry, Florida Panthers weren't the only team from Florida that were buying at this deadline. I don't know why I went down that road to say that the Tampa Bay Lightning also acquired forwards Yanni Gord and Oliver Bjorkstrand from Seattle.
Yeah. And this was a little
Um,
earlier on in the week. It wasn't on
that
deadline day.
that was on the 5th, so it would have been a couple days
Yeah.
before. Um, dude, Yanni Gord making his return back to back to the
Tampa.
city where he
So
back to yeah where he won. Did he win 2 cups with them?
I believe so, yes. And what was the price for that as well, Dave? It was two firsts?
Yes, I'm just trying to pull it up over here.
No problem. In the meantime, I will
Oh,
tell
okay.
you this.
So
Yeah,
it
you got
was for Michael Eyssimont.
who's the guy that we like. Yeah.
We do like him. They got the Leafs 2025 second round pick. They also got the Lightning's first rounder in 2026 and 2027. Both of them, I think, do have conditions on
Yeah.
them as well.
So my God, that is expensive as hell. We already know Yanni Gourde passed the sniff test that we talk about, which is just would you envision this guy in a Panthers, Lightning, or Bruins jersey? Well, we've seen it already, so that takes care of it. But Oliver Bjorkstrand, I think, also passes the Tampa Bay Lightning sniff test. So I don't like it. I don't like it because
Scored on his debut too.
exactly. So seamless fit goes right into their kind of top six, top nine. He's a punch and like plug him and play him. It's a really nice fit. It's expensive as hell. I do think people give maybe Tampa too much of a pass because of their like cup history to just kind of throw picks to the wind. Like it wasn't that long ago that we were all saying, well, "What the hell are the Tampa Bay Lightning doing, trading a first, second, third, fourth, and fifth for Tanner Jeannot?" I don't think this is as bad. But I think if you inserted a lot of different teams' names into that Tampa Bay Lightning spot for this trade, they wouldn't give it an A+ grade like
Okay,
I've
A
seen some
plus.
people do, right? Like,
Yeah,
listen, without a doubt, you have house money to work with when you've already won one cup, let alone two cups, without a doubt. But I almost just wonder if the pendulum swung too far. I don't know how much Yanni Gourde has left in the tank based off of like the injury history, and where he was in the Seattle Kraken lineup.
hmm
I don't have anything to say about Bjorkstrand in terms of negatives with him. Like I think he's a
that's a
really good
shoe
one.
in for 20 to
Yeah,
25
he's
goals.
he's got he's got another year on his deal. They got better, man. They got better.
Yeah. Um, on that, like who who has the I don't I know what the answer is going to be, but like that
Saying like
forward
who had the better
core,
deadline?
yeah, man.
No, it's by
I
far it is the Panthers. Unfortunately, yeah. It's not
yeah.
there's really they had such a good like Jones and Marchand and Vanacek gets a hat trick in his first game. Like they made their
Wait,
team
Vanacek did?
yeah, they got Vanacek and he had a hat trick.
No.
I mean, sorry, he had a shutout
Oh, I was gonna say
for the Panthers, man.
I was gonna
Sorry,
say how
sorry,
was
yeah.
my man get a hat trick? Where
He
did I
would
miss
join.
Sorry.
He
that?
would join Florida and score 3 goals. Eh?
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, you're right.
Dear
That's
God. But yeah, like listen, they're the team to keep pace with in the East. The Leafs, I think the Leafs kept pace with Tampa. I don't know if they kept pace with Florida. But listen,
did
like
did either of them keep pace with Florida? Like
no,
did
no, that's what
Tampa
like
keep
I
pace
think
with them
there's
either? Like I
no,
don't know.
no. So, but once upon a time, the Florida Panthers played the Boston Bruins, who set an NHL record for most points in a single season, and beat them in round one and went on to a Stanley Cup final. So, just because they're the best team on paper doesn't mean
You're the
squat,
best team.
honestly.
Yeah.
But like just looking at it right now, they're scary as hell. So you want to talk about the Sens here because I'm really mad about their deadline because they did really well.
Yeah. So the Sens, they sent Josh Norris and Jacob Bernard Docker to the Buffalo Sabres for Dylan Cousins, Dennis Gilbert, and a 2026 second round pick. Man, Dylan Cousins on the Sens now. The workhorse from Whitehorse, as some are calling him. Wow.
Yeah, I do want to add as well the San Jose Sharks trade that they also made Ottawa getting Philip
That means
Zetterland
that
for is it
it's
Fabian.
Fabian.
Yes.
Fabian, yeah,
Sick
yeah.
name. Sick name.
Yeah,
Fabian Zetterland.
producer Mando knows.
Yeah, it's his guy. Fabian Zetterland, Tristan Robbins, and a fourth round pick goes to Ottawa in exchange for Zach Ostapchuk, a second rounder, and Leaf legend Noah Gregor. Maybe Mando, you can give us the inside scoop here on Zetterland. Why the hell did the San Jose Sharks give up on a 25-year-old left winger who's best friends with William Eklund, and is in the middle of a pretty good season?
Well, I know the Dylan Cousins move was the bigger move, so I'll let you guys kind of get into that. But yeah, the Zetterlund, it was surprising. Like Greer is normally on the ball and he makes the smart moves. I know you require a second round pick for him, but with a team that's growing and trying to kind of find an identity, it is a little bit strange that you trade a 25-year-old RFA. Yeah, RFA, but he's not going
Yeah.
to be commanding that much money. Really, like I know Biz, a lot of people kind of referenced Paul Bissonnette on Sportsnet. He's a cigarette machine. He's a thick guy. He can move pretty quickly. He's a good player, and I think he adds a lot to that locker room, probably in terms of culture. So it is a bit of a surprising mood. Maybe there's more thoughts down the road, and obviously, if you draft a forward, you're probably going to go with a Matthew Schaefer would be my preference. But if you're drafting younger players, maybe you make more room for these younger guys to come up. But it is perplexing. I'm a little disappointed because I did like Fabian Zetterlund, but there's obviously ulterior motives, so I'll just leave it at that.
For sure.
Yeah, the only thing I can think is they really like Zach Ostapchuk, and they're gonna prey on him, kind of turning into the next Fabian Zetterlund. Interesting that the Sens kind of like Brady Tkachuk was his best friend, and they bring in William Eklund's best friend. So Eklund and Brady Tkachuk losing some buddies. Maybe Dave, we talk about the Cousins piece after a quick break here.
Yep, I'm good with that. So we're back from our little break, but I mentioned to the guys during the break, I do have a little note back on the Marchand going to Florida trade this Tuesday. Guess what's going on? Florida, Boston at the TD Garden. That's going to
Except
be
he's
what?
injured, man. He's injured.
Oh,
Yeah, I
I
know.
forgot
I
about
know.
that. I forgot
Yeah,
about
but
that.
you know who else is
Oh,
like Kachuk's injured too? Like
I
it's
know. It's
I don't
it is a
know.
bit of a decimated
Yeah.
roster. Maybe
Yeah,
just some
I
bad blood. Maybe bad blood
I
just because they made the deal. Just give me something.
definitely some bad blood. I don't know if they play again later in the season, but like I think Marchand's tracking towards being like a maybe right at the playoff like type of
Yeah,
debut,
last couple of
right?
games.
So no matter when that game is, even if it's next year, that's going to be must watch. Must
Yeah,
watch. It is a
yeah.
little. It's a little. I can't be sad for Bruins fans. I don't have it in me, but
No.
it sucks that they didn't like get a proper send off for the captain. Right, he got
And
injured
they
before the deadline, and next thing
probably
you know,
won't.
he's not your captain anymore. So
Yeah, probably won't for
that's
a little bit.
pretty abrupt stuff. But yeah, let's do some the Sens, the Cousins talk. You had already run through the trade details. I remember when the deal came in, people were like, "Wait, no. The Sens can't be getting the second. They got to be giving that up." So I saw that
Mm.
as one of the first reactions. Talked with the Brady Tkachuk angle. I have a stat for us comparing Cousins and Josh Norris, actually courtesy of Alex Adams, who Mando mentioned was on the general pod yesterday. So Dylan Cousins this season has 12 primary assists at 5-on-5 after one that he had yesterday. Okay. Josh Norris has 13 primary 5-on-5 assists in his career. His career.
Ooh,
That's a pretty damning stat, to be
that's
honest. That's
that
like,
sounds like a made up stat. Not a made up
and
stat, but like I don't know
it's
if I
listen,
believe you.
it's cherry picked, but I think it is good. Like I think it's cherry picked well. Like sometimes you get a cherry off the tree that's really tasty. I think that's one of them, right? So,
Or is
I
that a
think
rotten cherry in turn like for for the other guys in that for
it.
Josh Norris? Like
Yeah, listen, and Mando's saying it's an insane stat. We'll get into maybe the Sabres side too, but yeah, it's an interesting one there, and I think it speaks to like two sides of the coin here. Number one, Norris is a shooter first and foremost, even down the middle as the center. Number, I don't know if I said number one or number two there, but
that was number one.
secondarily, okay, number two, brother doesn't play a lot of games because if
Yeah.
he played more often, that stat wouldn't exist. I think Norris is the better player when he's available, but that doesn't happen too often. If you're the Senators trying to make a playoff run, not just this year, but in years in the future, you can't really have a guy whose shoulder is liable to fall off at any given moment. I think most people are saying this is a win for the Sens, and I don't really know how to rationalize it from the Sabres side other than what Elliot Friedman mentioned on 32 Thoughts, which is this might have just been the best offer they got on the table. So this is kind of
Yeah.
all they had. They could have went for guys who have trade protection, and who the hell is waiving their trade protection to go to Buffalo right now, right?
Yeah, no, not a
You're
lot
only
of
going to
people.
Buffalo if you don't have a choice, and that's the case for Josh Norris.
Yeah. The best quality to have in a player is availability. And for Josh Norris, that availability really hasn't been there from all of his NHL career. Like, has he had
Yeah,
like 1 year where it's been pretty clean? I wouldn't be able to
his
tell you honestly.
his games played marks on his career are not great, not great at all.
Like
I'll pull them up
if
here, but
he's
it's been
hit a season where it's 65 plus
yeah,
games, I consider that to be a good
yeah.
season for Josh
So
Norris. Like,
yeah, here you go. Since 2020, because he played 3 games in 2019-20. I think that was just because he got called up at the end of the year. So 2020, 56 games. He actually, I think, was healthy
that's
because I believe
a full season.
that's the short in the year. 2021, well, he had 66 games.
Okay.
In 2022, 8 games. 2023, 50. And then yeah, right now he's at 54 because that's where we're at in the season. So he missed a couple, but yeah, he's never played more than 66 games. That's his career high.
Hmm.
So it's the problem too is it's a reoccurring
It's
injury.
recurring. Yeah.
It's the same thing.
It's
It's not a guy
not
who's
gonna
just getting
get,
bad luck breaks,
yeah, it
right?
doesn't seem like that's gonna get better, at least in the short
Even if
term.
it does, it'll all be in the back of his mind and the team's mind. But like once again, liable to fall off at any given moment. I don't know how to rationalize it for the Sabres. There was all the rumors about JJ Peterka and maybe him going with the like Rangers involved. I'm
That's
curious
I
what happened there.
don't give away JJ, dude.
I think
I love him. He's such
I
a
love him too.
solid player.
Love him too.
I
You
don't
actually
see, sorry.
this is the thing. No. Like what was the Ryan O'Reilly quote when he left Buffalo?
Listen, it was that he fell out of love with the sport, and how many other players have come out and said the exact same thing coming out of
Yeah,
that organization? Sam
Sam
Reinhart,
Bennett, Sam Ryan. No, sorry, not Sam Bennett. Sam Reinhart, Ryan O'Reilly.
Ryan O'Reilly. Didn't
Who
Jack
am I
Eichel even
forgetting?
have like some
Jack Eichel. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
like, listen,
It's a laundry list.
it's one thing for it to be one guy. And we even saw Ryan O'Reilly here in Toronto. Like, he wasn't a fan of the spotlight and stuff like that. Like, it's not for him.
Winning is fun.
Winning does help, but also, like, to Ryan O'Reilly's point, like, I'm not to say like, oh, it's only Ryan O'Reilly, it's only Jack. Like, that's three
Yeah.
guys now. Like, there's a common denominator here,
Oh
guys.
yeah, we already had that pod earlier in the year where we absolutely eviscerated the Sabres. So we don't have to totally relitigate it, but I kind of
We
think
could
their
do it
plan
every
right
week.
now. If we could, if yeah, it'd be a really depressing podcast if we just talked Sabres and Canucks, the
Uh,
1970s expansion bros every week. But
Imagine being like a locked in Sabres podcast.
man, yeah,
Oh,
it's I feel for the fellas because the Bills, they help them out right until the end of the year, right?
yeah,
So you
right
can at
till
least get away from it.
February.
Yeah, so yeah, I kind of think the Sabres game plan here is they're just trying to luck into
Something.
something. Like they
Yeah.
are literally just on a hope and a prayer that they're gonna flip all of these guys. They're gonna flip a JJ Pasurka, they're gonna flip a Bowen Byram, they're gonna flip an Alex Tuck, and they're just gonna pray that whatever they get back, which they want roster players, they're just gonna pray that for whatever reason it works because they haven't been in Buffalo their whole career and they're not depressed as hell already. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
kind of think
but
that's their plan. So here's the
it does
thing.
also give, like, that's what they did before. Like, you did that already.
Yeah, I just like they
Like,
it's clear they don't want to bottom out again. So they're
yeah,
trying for the next best
fifth
thing.
time.
Here's the thing. Here's the team that I think gives them the ability to do this and believe that it can actually work. I think we all thought the Calgary Flames were just gonna turn into like a shell of themselves and totally rebuild. And they've made a bunch of trades, brought in like guys like Igor Sharangovich and obviously Mackenzie Weegar and
Morgan Frost,
Huberdeau
Joel
and Nazem
Farabee.
Kadri, Joel Farabee. And they like that's it just kind of happens out of nowhere. Like I don't even know how much the Flames expected it. So
It also really helps when you get like plus like above 915, 920 save like goaltending
yes,
from
yeah, and
your rookie goalie.
they're supposed to have Dustin Wolf and Devin Levi. Like that's that once
The
upon a
Sabres, you're
time,
saying, yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
So,
It
but
kind of
I
does
just
feel
kind of
like it kind of does feel like even at his young age, I don't know if
it's
Buffalo's the
so tough
spot
though
for him.
because it's the Sabre. Yeah, exactly. Like it's more about the Sabres than it is about any individual player, right? So, yeah, it's I like I said, I think they're just gonna flip a bunch of names, try and bring in a bunch of new names, and pray that it works. I kind of think that's all they've got right now. It's not a great look.
Um, yeah.
Yeah,
Do we want to kind of maybe hit other teams in like Canada? Like we brought up the Flames. Do you want to also hit maybe quickly on the Oilers? They brought
yeah.
in Jake Wallman.
And like the Jets, I'm gonna do this very quickly in a minute here. I think the Jets are kind of in the similar spot to the Sabres in terms of they can't attract talent. So Cheveldayoff said like he tried to do stuff and basically couldn't get people to waive to come to Winnipeg. Cough cough Brock Nelson.
Mhm.
And that's always been his playbook. Like, look at some of his more recent deadline ads, like Nino Niederreiter. Was a guy who doesn't have a reason to not like Winnipeg because he's from Switzerland and not, I don't know, California. Like, I'm
California.
just being blunt here. And he had term on his deal. I think Cheveldayoff is very confident he can convince someone that doesn't have like a tendency to only want to play in warm climates that they'll want to stay in Winnipeg if he can get them in for longer than a deadline run. I think that's basically his motto. It's a good motto to have when you GM in Winnipeg,
I'll be
right?
honest, I think Bern is a lot nicer of a city than, no offense to Winnipeg,
Hey,
or even
listen,
like places in
yeah,
California, depending on the weather. Like
yeah.
it's a very
This is
beautiful
that.
spot.
I think this is the perspective you have to have though. If you're Winnipeg, it's what the history shows. They bring in Brandon Tanev, who guess what? He's gonna like Winnipeg because his brother was already there.
Yeah,
And Luke Shen from Saskatchewan, closest you can get
close
is
enough. Yeah.
Manitoba, right? That's how it is. And he's got another year on his deal, so you can try and sell him. Yeah, and Tanev maybe is just a rental, but they didn't pay a lot from a second, so the Jets did what they could. They were one of the teams that we looked at as maybe they don't mess with it too much because of the chemistry. Maybe let's move on to Oilers.
Yeah,
They had the two moves, right? Frederick and Wallman.
and Wallman.
And we saw Wallman turn into a brick wall against Mikko Rantanen yesterday.
Yeah.
I like the trade more than I don't. Um, I still look at the Oilers and I still don't know like what their depth is at forward. You're praying
I'm
for
still
like Evander
concerned.
Kane.
I'm still concerned in net. Like
That's
Stuart
the
Skinner had
yeah.
his run, but
That's been a
oof.
constant, right? That's been the
Hmm.
constant. I'm gonna pull up their forward group here. Like right now, you've got Vasily Podkolzin and Victor Arvidsson in your top six. That is not sustainable at all. And look, you have Evander Kane and Trent Frederick on IR right now. So you
Hmm.
insert those two. You probably take out Max Jones and Kapanen, like right, like
Like
that,
Kevin's been playing
or
well for
it's
them, but like, yeah, you're
yeah,
right.
like
Like who who's
or
coming out
Arvid.
there?
No, but you know what? Kapanen's got the 11 points. Arvidsson's got 20. So I would guess right now you take out Jones and Kapanen, you insert Frederick and Evander Kane. You're a little bit better, but you're now like when they added Adam Henrique, he was the gravy ad. He is
Wait a
now like
minute. I thought Evander Kane wasn't coming back for the rest of this year.
I think for the regular season, I still think he there's a chance he
You
comes
think for
back
a
in the
playoff run?
playoffs. Even then, like you're getting the
Yeah.
shell of Evander Kane, right? So it's not like you can't rely on that. So I'm really not as high on the Oilers as maybe we would have expected at the beginning of the year, or even as recently as like a month or two ago, right? So I don't love kind of where they're at. They've fallen behind pace with the Abs and the Stars for sure, and I'd still maybe
Mhm.
take Vegas over
I'm
them. Like,
definitely taking Vegas over them too.
and I'm might even take the Jets. Like the Jets all hinge on Connor Hellebuck, right? That's the caveat there.
Yeah.
The Canucks,
Yes.
what are you
Who
doing?
so
And this will
so
be the last thing. Yeah.
the Canucks also made their moves. Like I wasn't
Yeah,
surprised that the only move that they made was Carson Soucy because
yeah,
it kind of felt like they hitched their post to the Elias Pettersson wagon for better or for worse, and it really looks like
yeah,
it's for worse right now, for the absolute worst. And we've had this talk before. We've litigated the you need to
yeah,
get EP going, so I'm not surprised that the only thing that they did was ship out Carson Soucy.
yeah,
But going forward, man, oh man,
yeah.
where do the Canucks are like
So
at a crossroads right now, but which way are they going?
I think they're like at a crossroads that can go in 17 different directions, and they might go none.
They, they're gonna
Yeah,
go
right.
backwards.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the talking point coming out of deadline is Patrick Allvin saying, I would have to run out of the room if I told you the offers I was getting for Brock Besser. The asking price was apparently a first. Apparently the Panthers were interested until they found out they could get Marchand for just a conditional second. The Carolina Hurricanes were interested, but they wanted to make it a bigger deal where you trade Kotkaniemi and a first for Besser and one of the Canucks' top prospects. And the Canucks weren't interested, and I don't blame them. I don't
Yeah,
blame them. Is it surprising that they still couldn't trade him? Yes,
but
as
no,
I sneeze.
yeah, yeah, no, I'll take that quickly.
We're back.
Who's it also just feels like whose fault was that? If you shroud your organization, if your organization is shrouded in misery for at least 8 months, like misery
Yeah,
and give me all the adjectives to describe what the Vancouver Canucks have been. Obviously, you're not getting the sun and the moon for guys that are like underappreciated assets. Like those assets, like
yeah,
what else are you getting for them? Sorry, pal. Like you're not getting the
yeah.
sun and the moon for Brock Besser, who was a
It's
40 goal scorer last year.
yeah.
But
I the question is, yeah, is it the sun and the moon for Brock Besser? I almost wonder, and I brought this up before. It's like, do teams around the league kind of know where he's going to end up on July 1st, and that's why they're not interested in him as just a rental? Like,
and it's not Vancouver. Like they know that
yeah,
his time's run
yeah,
out
and
there.
maybe,
Yeah,
yeah,
probably.
like that's all I can think of, and I can eat my words if he doesn't sign in Minnesota on July 1. But like, it just like, and there actually hasn't been any noise to this, but this is just me kind of trying to connect the dots without having the information. Is that maybe teams around the league know that it would just be as a rental, that he has one or two spots picked out, and that's why no one stepped up for a first. Um, yeah, that's all I got on there. Pew Suter is another one that I think teams would have been interested in. I think the Leafs should have
I
been
I was
interested if he
just
was
saying,
available, right?
mhm.
So
Even if it's
I think
like
they,
3C, 4C option there,
yeah,
probably
yeah.
honestly,
He's 3C. He's probably better. Like he's probably a better fit this year than Scott Laughton, but
mhm.
um, he's a rental.
Yeah.
So I think the Canucks probably try to sign him, which is fine. If they end up signing him, fine. If you don't sign him, you're gonna look back on that and say, why don't we trade
Why
him?
didn't we?
So
Yeah.
they're like I said, the 1970s expansion bros are like two of the most interesting and chaotic teams, not just this season, but in their entire history. And I don't know how soon that's going to be changing, if at all. So yeah,
Well, it doesn't appear
crazy
that there
deadline, brother.
is. It does not appear that there's a light at the end of the tunnel currently for
Yeah,
either of those two teams. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're sitting here in 12 months and both of those
and they're
teams,
in the Stanley Cup final.
yeah, or that at least they're pushing for a playoff spot for the boat
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
both of them.
yeah, yeah.
So, but I right now I can't see it. Do you have any other trades you want to get into? I think we covered all of Canada, but Montreal
Yeah, I
didn't
think
do
we
a
did
single
good.
thing. So I thought David
Yeah,
Savard was like all but gone, but I guess they decide to keep him. They keep Jake Evans as well. I don't hate the
they're in
deal that they
the.
gave him
No, I
either.
don't either. I don't either, and I
Uh, it
they're in the
sucks when
playoff mix
you're
still.
it sucks when your ops make great like moves that you just
Yeah,
can't
they
hate
and
on.
Ken Hughes has done that a lot. So
He's yeah, he has.
yeah, oh, yeah,
So you know what? Yeah,
I'm all
that's
done.
fair from across Canada. There's other moves that we didn't get into today, but we hope to kind of see the fruits of those, like their labor, kind of throughout the coming weeks. We'll definitely
Definitely.
won't be afraid to mention them when stuff happens. But on that note, cheers to another awesome trade deadline. I don't know if you
Hell
got
yeah, dude.
anything else
Hell
you
yeah.
wanted to mention before we hop off
I'm so excited for this playoff run for all of the divisions. And the Atlantic looks like it's going to be a bloodbath. So
again.
it's good that
Yeah.
it's not. It's good that we're not coasting to the end of April or the beginning of April, or sorry, the middle of April when playoffs will start. It's going to be chaos till the final game of the season. So
That
buckle
is
up.
very true. It has felt like over the past like 4 to 5 years, like by this time it was always we're loading up
At
for
least, yeah, at
whoever
least
the
from a
first
Toronto
round,
perspective.
like
Yeah,
we're loading up to play against our
yeah,
chosen first, not chosen, but like the team that we knew we were going to play in the first
yeah.
round. But now
The
it
Atlantic
is a
is
little
up
bit
for
up in the
grabs.
air.
The
Yeah.
wild card is totally up for grabs. The
The
Western
East,
wild card is up for grabs.
the East is
And
going to be very,
Pacific,
very
like, yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
everything is
Um,
still in flux, man.
Producer Mando, before we hop off, you got any quick notes for us?
Got nothing, boys. Good pod. A lot to get to. We'll see these trade deadline acquisitions make their moves in the next coming weeks and in the playoffs. So excited to see how they play out.
Sweet. Thank you for that. On that note, don't forget to subscribe to the Second Look Sports channel. Don't forget to like this video. Let us know what you guys thought of this trade deadline. Who you guys thought was the biggest winner, biggest loser. Let us know down in the comments. Don't forget to follow all of our socials, which you can find in the bio of our channel. On that note, we'll see you in here next week.